Mic check. Mic is. Let me know if you could hear me. Sounds good. Okay, that's good. Facebook is good. App. Okay. Sounds good. Facebook, app, YouTube. Alright. Hopefully TikTok is also good. I'll get started. B'Shem HaShem Na'aseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here on our Tuesday night Jewish intimacy series that Baruch HaShem is getting closer and closer to completion. Baruch HaShem, we've been working very hard on this series, I think more than any of the other series is, and BeEzrat HaShem tonight is going to be another addition to it. But it's going to talk about fatherhood. Who's really the happiest father, and what's the evidence of that in the Torah? Because if it's not in the Torah, it simply does not exist and it's not reality. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema for Rabbanit Sarah Bat Anat, Rav Ephraim Ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Levana Bat Sarah, Avi Mori David Ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris Bat Zora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahites. Just as a reminder for everyone, we only have a couple of weeks left in this Shalavim time, where it's an auspicious time to do tshuva and to do tikkunim for the isur of pgam BEIT and immorality, promiscuity. Anyone that's in the process of doing tshuva certainly needs to take this into consideration. If you're able to do tikkunim, you should, and it's something that is very much a creator of blessings, if you will, as we learned in previous lectures over the last few weeks. Also, as a reminder for everyone, we have Baruch Hashem, our new book that's both in English and in Hebrew by Rav Ephraim and by Rabbanit Kachlon, that is both for him and her. It's both in English and in Hebrew. It's literally a very beautiful book, hardcover, and also has not only beautiful writing, but also beautiful pictures inside that really are truly beautiful. So it's a pretty book, certainly a good coffee table type of book, and certainly a must read for all couples, whether you're a new couple, old couple, want to be a couple, want to get married. This is the book for you. So we're giving them out for free, as is the best price in the world is free. In our Kiruv store. Anyone that wants to distribute at least 20 or more of them can go to the Kiruv store, kiruvstore.org, get yourself a box of 20, and then you can go ahead and give it out in your Jewish community over there, in the synagogue, in the Bet Midrash, in the restaurants, wherever it is that you're going to give them out. But these are certainly books that are flying off the shelves, Baruch Hashem. We also have a huge distribution that is happening in Eretz Yisrael, BeEzrat HaShem, next week. We're gathering a team of guys that are going to be distributing the book. We're expecting to distribute somewhere between 15 to 20,000 books in a single day. Anyone that wants to join the team is welcome to contact me. It's for pay. We're not asking for anybody for any favors, unless you want to do it for chesed, but we prefer to pay you, so we know you're going to do a good job. You can contact me and we could add you to the team, and BeEzrat HaShem, we're looking for somewhere between 25 and 30 people. We already have about half of that, and BeEzrat HaShem, over the next 24 hours, we should have the rest, BeEzrat HaShem. Last but not least, this book, this whole series is based on the book called Igeret HaKodesh that was written by the Ramban, Nachmanides, around 750 years ago. The translation of it was done by one of his descendants, our dear friend Rabbi Yaakov Bar Nachman, bears the same last name. And there's a new edition of the translation that was recently released, Baruch Hashem, by him. It also comes in a beautiful hardcover. You can get it on Amazon. And if this is something that you don't know if you need or you don't need, it has quite a bit more than just the series that we're talking about. Of course, it has our askama in there. We try to support the Rabbi Nachman as much as possible, not only by letting you guys know about the book, but also by writing our askama in the book. But also the book has several other things, including the famous debate in Barcelona between the Ramban and the leaders of the Christian world. It also has special blessings and sgulot for people that are either preparing for intimacy or having children, a woman that's pregnant, a father that's waiting for his wife to give birth, parents that want children, all types of great blessings from the Ramban that are highly, highly recommended for people to take into account. Again, this book is relatively cheap on Amazon. You can get it. I don't get a single penny out of this. I'm not promoting it for money. I'm promoting it because it's simply a fantastic product. And there is a difference between the new edition and the old edition that I have, as some of the mistakes or things that needed to be corrected in the translation were corrected, and Baruch HaShem, it is certainly good for people to read. Okay, with that being said, Baruch HaShem, B'siman Tov, B'shah Tova, we are getting on the road of Jewish intimacy to get to the next point. To the next point, the Ramban is here to teach us. We're also coinciding with Parashat Yitro. This is the climatic point of the entire world, as the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, he made a covenant where the heaven and the earth were the witnesses that if Am Yisrael were to accept the Torah at Mount Sinai some 2,400 years later, then the world will continue. But if not, the world will cease to exist. This is one of the reasons why when the Torah says, the end of each day's creation, it adds the letter Hey to the day, the sixth day, Friday, Yom HaShishi, and that Hey is symbolic of that covenant, and also that Hey is symbolic of the number 5, as in the 5 books of Moses. So we are in that parashat Yitro, is when we not only hear about Yitro and his extraordinary conversion to Judaism, Vayishma Yitro, as soon as he heard the wonders and the extraordinary measure for measure punishment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu delivers in this world that's beyond our logic and comprehension, he came quickly to convert to Judaism. He joined us at Mount Sinai, but shortly after that, we have the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments, Matan Torah. And of course, as Kadosh Baruch Hu has always been with us throughout all of these years, he constantly shows us where this shiur is in the Torah of that week. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will see that again today. So, the Ramban told us a lot of things. Told us about the preparation, the physical preparation for intimacy, the mental preparation for intimacy, and needless to say, the spiritual preparation for intimacy. Anyone that has been watching this series has quickly discovered that intimacy is a whole lot more than an animalistic act like most people treat it as. And one of the main things that a person has found out from this series is that the highest level of servitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be done through intimacy, through the actual holy act of a man and his wife, even higher than learning Torah. Now, this does not mean that a person should simply stay in their bedroom and never leave. Of course, you have to watch the series and see how a person can reach such a high level. But the point being is, just from that statement alone, a person sees that there is a lot more to intimacy than just simply procreation, simply having some type of physical pleasure. There's a whole lot more to it. As HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us in Parashat Kedoshim, Kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani. You be holy because I am holy. And he also mentions it in this week's parasha about the obligation to be a holy nation. And this is referring to how we treat morality. In an immoral world that we live in today, we obviously have to work a little extra hard to shut our ears and eyes in order not to be infected by the filth of society. But this is nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. Society has always been society. If it wasn't what we have today, it's what we had in the previous generation. There is no such thing as a test that the generation has that it cannot handle. Just like there is no such thing as a test that you or I have a test that we can't handle. If HaShem gave it to you, that means He already gave you the tools to handle it. He provides the cure before the ailment. And one of the main things that people struggle with in life in general is fatherhood. Now, of course, motherhood has its own difficulties. The carrying of the baby, the changing of the body. These are all extraordinary difficulties that no man on planet Earth will ever understand. And I spoke about this extensively in a different lecture called Kosher Intimacy years ago. But one of the things that is rarely addressed is the difficulty in fatherhood. Because on one hand, a father wants to play with their kids, a father wants to give their kids everything that they want, but on the other hand, if they do play with them all the time and give them everything they want all the time, all they're doing is destroying their kid. So there is a time to discipline the kid, there's a time to teach the kid, and there obviously is a time to play with the kid. And there is a time to give the kid certain presents. But the balance is different for different people. It all depends on what you do in your life. The question is, how does a father attain happiness from his fatherhood? Many people can tell you they're happy with their career, especially if they're successful, especially if they're extremely successful, especially if they're a public personality and they need to look like they're successful. But when it comes to fatherhood, rarely does anybody ever talk about their genuine happiness from being a father itself. Perhaps they're happy to have kids, or they're happy that they're married, but many times when you see the behind the scenes of some of the public personalities out there, you see that they have no reason whatsoever to be happy, as their kids are wayward kids, drug addicts, degenerates, have all types of addictions, or sometimes just simply hate each other. So how do we know that we can attain happiness as fathers? Does the Torah discuss it? And of course it does. As the Torah discusses everything. But this is the part that the Ramban is going to delve into a little bit more as we go from the mentality and ideological change that is required in order to actually attain not only holiness, but also pleasure and intimacy that we discussed last week, where a man needs to know that there is a certain benefit to letting the woman be first, but at the same token, you may prefer otherwise. You have to know why this and why that. For all of that, go to last week's lecture, because we don't really want to repeat the same thing. There's no need for it. Now the Ramban that has taught us all of these wonderful things, the spiritual preparation, the physical preparation, the mental preparation, letting us know what to eat, letting us know how to behave in general, how to clean, how to think, how to look, everything that he's taught us, and even when to climax. Now he is in essence concluding everything. We're not yet at the end, but we're getting there relatively quickly. And he says as follows: and now, having all which I have told you in the previous chapters, along with this chapter, you should make analogies from the matters which we have mentioned to learn matters which we have not recounted, and bring all these things together. In so many words, the Ramban is telling us that he's taught us more than enough to have an all-encompassing knowledge and a complete command of this particular topic, even when it comes to things we haven't discussed. Why? Because you can use the different things that he has taught us as examples, as analogies, as a certain standard in order to apply to all of the other related items when it comes to intimacy. And by this, you will understand how a man should conduct himself modestly during his marital relations, with even greater emphasis on the modesty than in such things as eating, drinking, and other matters of everyday life. For according to the level of modesty and behavior you hold during the union, so will come to be the form of the seed. See, here the Ramban is in essence unveiling a secret, where first and foremost he's letting us know that modesty is not just an obligation for the woman in Judaism and in the Torah, but rather is an obligation on the man. Anyone that has studied the Shulchan Aruch will know this very well, that modesty is required even behind closed doors. Modesty is required even inside the bathroom when you are alone and simply taking care of your body. Modesty is required when you're eating. In fact, if people learned the different laws when it comes to eating, they would be baffled at how many violations they're making, perhaps not of biblical laws, but certainly of ideological and behavioral laws. Because the way people eat today is certainly not what the Torah told us to do. So the Ramban is telling us that you have to have modesty when you're eating. Certainly people that walk around while they're eating is not only disgusting, but it's not modest, it's not appropriate. The Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, compares people like that to animals, like cows or bulls, or whatever other animal of your choice. People that eat in public places, but in such a fashion where, in essence, they care less about how they look, and they make a mess out of themselves. They are, one of these people that perhaps you prefer to look at the wall instead of them eating. This is certainly not a way to behave. This is certainly not a way to present HaShem. As a Talmidei Chachamim, the Torah scholars that eat are compared to those that worked at the and served at the Bet HaMikdash, bringing a sacrifice. So modesty is required in every aspect of a Jew's life, whether male or female. But here the Ramban is focusing on the male. And he's telling us that as much as you already know, and again, he's assuming that the reader is not only a student, but is a Torah scholar that already knows all of the basics. You know that there is an extraordinary amount of modesty required in your behavior, your dress, your eating, your drinking, and other matters of everyday life. You know all the modesty that's required. Now, most people are looking like, modesty, eating, drinking? What do I need to do? But even more clearly, he's telling us, as much modesty is required of you in these matters, there's even more modesty required of you in the act of intimacy. This, for anyone that hasn't watched the series, would simply make their brain explode. How do you act modesty in what seems to be an immodest act? Intimacy is not perceived as a modest act, quite the opposite. Lust, lewdness, immorality, promiscuity are words in practically everybody's vocabulary. Rarely does anyone talk about intimacy and modesty in the same sentence. But here the Ramban has been teaching us for the last 39 lectures that modesty is not only something possible in intimacy, but is required. If a person wants to have a significant positive impact on what fruit come from his seed, as he tells us that according to the level of modesty and behavior that you hold during the intimate act, during the union with your wife, so will come to be the form of the seed. See here, Rabotai, the Ramban is telling us that if you have, in so many words, infested your brain with spiritual manure of pornography and other filthy like type of media, then the first act is to clean your brain, which is to learn Torah Stop watching any of those things, including even regular television, including the news, including sports, including anything that has any type of immodesty in it. And after a period of time, the Torah that you learn is going to overcome the inappropriate things that you've accustomed yourself to, and sanctify your mind, even during the act of intimacy. This takes time, this takes an extraordinary amount of effort, but it certainly is possible. Now, cleaning your mind is one thing. What to do with it is something completely different. Just like I tell people that are concerned about doing a tikkun when they don't really have much money, I tell them, don't let the tikkun stop your tshuva. A tshuva for immorality, whether it be wasting seed, promiscuity, intermarriage, and so on, adultery, tshuva for that does not require the tikkun. A tikkun is a very strong recommendation for those that are able to do it. But they're completely two separate things. Tshuva is stopping the sin, saying I'm sorry and never doing it again. Tikkun is fixing what you've broken after you've done tshuva. Meaning, if you just do a tikkun but you continue sinning, you're just simply wasting your time. It's like going to the mikveh while you're holding a pig in your hands. It's not going to help you. So, the same concept here. When it comes to spiritual aspects and elevation and sanctifying yourself, being modest not only requires the behavior, but also requires the mind. Not only the mind, but also behavior. Meaning these are two completely different things. A person can act modestly, but in their mind they could have practically a sanitation department. It's certainly very important to act modestly, even if your mind is full of sanitation, even if your mind is something that you never want to let anyone know about, including yourself. So the behavior is obviously superior and more important, but ultimately the goal is also to elevate your mind. This takes more time. But if your mind is clean, you can be assured that your behavior will be clean as well. And the Ramban is telling us that if you are able to do this, the higher the level of purity and holiness that is, in essence, acted upon during the intimacy, the more impact it's going to have on your seed. So he's telling us that modesty is an obligation for the man. Number two, he's telling us that modesty is not just in clothes, but rather in every part of day-to-day life. And three, he's telling you that it's going to have an impact on what comes out of you. Now, before we get into what comes out of you, we all know that there are a couple of choices. Of course, the initial choice is whether this is going to create a child or not. But regardless of whether this seed creates a child or not, there's still in essence, a spark of kedusha in there, or a spark of tuma coming from there. There's still a certain neshama that is connected to every single seed. Whether that neshama is going to merit being combined with the body or not, that obviously is a decision that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to make. When the angel Laila brings in the seed, as the Gemara in Masechet Nida says. But regardless of whether this turns into a cute little baby or not, everyone knows that the baby doesn't stay cute. It grows up. Sometimes it grows up into a precious little tzaddik that eventually becomes a bigger tzaddik. And sometimes this little cute kid turns into a big monster. Which one are you going to have? You can have some say in it. And the Ramban tells us why. This is the secret. The Torah tells us in the book of Genesis, Sefer Bereshit, chapter 25, verse 19, where it says, Ve'ele toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham, Avraham olid et Yitzchak. And these are the generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avraham. Avraham begot Yitzchak. Where it has been told to us that after HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, meaning told Avraham, Sarah, your wife, will give birth to your son, despite their advanced age, and I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his seed after him. This was said in Genesis 17:19. Avraham focused his intentions at the time of union with the highest kavanah, the highest level of wisdom on all of his good traits, while adhering thoughts of the upper heavenly worlds. And he also intended to Sarah a son who would be worthy of what God said of him. This is the secret of Avraham begot Yitzchak. He intended to Sarah a son as pious and as a tzaddik, as righteous as himself. And this is the secret of what the Torah says, and these are the generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avraham. As our sages said, a tzaddik, son of a tzaddik, a righteous son of a righteous father. And Yitzchak's righteousness reached the level where HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, testified there was no inner or outer blemish in him. And there is the secret of, where the Torah says in the book of Genesis, chapter 22, verse 2, and offer him there as an olah offering. As we already know, that it's not proper to bring a defective sacrifice to the altar. Understand this very well. Here the Ramban, in a single segment that really couldn't be read apart. First we have to know it complete, and then of course we break it down. He's telling us why the Torah says what it says. Something perhaps we've all read many times. Each year, a Jew is obligated to read the weekly Torah portion twice and the commentary on it once. Some say that Onkelos is the commentary that's being referred to. Others are saying that it's okay to also read Rashi as the commentary. But regardless, halacha is as both of them are fine for the commentary. But regardless of how many times you've read the weekly Torah portion, you're not going to see what the Ramban just said in the traditional Torah portion. Because the traditional Torah portion is going to tell you the basic understanding of what it is. The Ramban is going into the Midrash, who itself is going into behind the scenes, almost into the secretive, mystical aspects of the Torah, even though it's in the Midrash. And he's telling us that this verse is really the secret of happiness for the father. Where the Torah says, these are the offspring of Yitzchak, the son of Avraham. Avraham begot Yitzchak. And the Midrash Rabbah, in chapter 63, first section, says that it seems like there are some extra words here that are redundant, where the verse already said that Yitzchak was the son of Avraham. Why is there a need to let us know that Avraham begot Yitzchak? Now we all know the story that there were some wicked people at the time that thought that perhaps the real father of Yitzchak was Avimelech, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle that Yitzchak looked identical to his father Avraham, to the point where people could not decipher the two. They didn't know who's who. But there is even another meaning. A meaning that is relevant to what we're teaching here. When it comes to intimacy. When it comes to the result of intimacy. And the Midrash says, in the name of Shlomo HaMelech, Proverbs chapter 23, verse number 24. Gil yagil avi tzadik, veyolet chacham yismach bo. Father of the righteous, of the tzaddik, will greatly rejoice, and he that begets a wise son will find happiness in him. The double expression, gil yagil, is implying not just regular joy, but extra joy, abnormal level of joy. Why is there a double joy, an abnormal level of joy for this father? Because he is righteous, and he just had a son who's righteous. When a righteous person has a righteous son, it's much more than just anyone else having a son. Because while every father, normal father at least, is happy to have a son, if that father was a righteous father, someone that's observant of the Torah, learns the Torah, lives by the Torah, for him to have a righteous son is a double joy. Because it's a joy that will give him true happiness throughout his entire life and his eternity. Now, before we get into why this is the case, the Midrash wants to let us know something that perhaps is a little easier to understand. And that's what's the situation with people that have an evil child. Now, of course, this is not something that you find out on day one. Every kid wakes up, or is born cute. Even if he's ugly, he's still cute. Small, they're all cute. Even pigs are cute when they're born. Monkeys are cute. Everything is cute when it's really small. But when they grow up, you start seeing what really came out of you. And the Midrash says, in the name of the prophet Isaiah, what happens when a righteous person has an evil child? This is also to show us how the Torah is not biased, where it's not just saying, oh, the righteous person will have righteous kids, and the wicked person will have wicked kids. It's not necessarily the case. We obviously know many examples of the opposite. You have Avraham had Yitzchak, but he also had Ishmael. Yitzchak had Yaakov, but he also had Esav. So we see that righteous people can have wicked kids and righteous kids. Moshe Rabbeinu, on the other hand, which we'll talk about a little later, his two sons are mentioned in a very, very small segment of the Torah, where, in essence, they're symbolic of the gratitude that Moshe had for HaShem. But they're not really mentioned later on until they're mentioned unfavorably. One of them is mentioned unfavorably because he became an idol worshiper. On the other hand, Aaron's children, although they were all righteous, two of them died for making a mistake, while two of them became some of the leaders of Am Yisrael, the Kohanim Gdolim. So we see that Aaron had more happiness from his kids than his brother Moshe, even though Moshe and Aaron were both righteous. So we see from here that sometimes a righteous person can have righteous kids, and sometimes can have wicked kids. On the other hand, we could also see that a wicked person can have a righteous kid. that can happen, and that has happened. So either way, the Midrash is now going to elaborate on what is the significance of a righteous person that has a wicked kid. And the prophet Isaiah says in chapter 7 verse 1, and it came to pass in the days of Achaz, the son of Yotam, son of Uzziah. Both Yotam and Uzziah were tzaddikim. Achaz, the son of Yotam, the grandson of Uzziah, was Rasha, was wicked. Idolater, evil, wicked, anything bad you would say, he fit the script. So it seems inappropriate to put him in the same verse, even though it's his father and it's his grandfather. So what's the situation? Why is the Torah, in essence, bringing this shame to the father and the grandfather of having such a wicked son? Says Rabbi Yoshaya that the Malachei Asharet, the ministering angels, said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, woe that Achaz has become a king. Meaning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this Achaz, he's wicked. He's going to lead Am Yisrael, your children, astray. He's an evil person. He's horrible. Kill him. He's going against the Torah. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the ministering angels, Achaz, look how he's written in the Torah. Look how he's written. It says Achaz, the son of Yotam, the son of Uzziah. What does that mean? Why did I tell the prophet to say these things? Put that in the Tanakh. Why? Because Achaz is the son of Yotam. His father Yotam was tzaddik. And so was Uzziah. And therefore, I feel that I cannot stretch my hand against him. Meaning, I have rules for myself. The merits of his father protect him. Because his father and his grandfather were tzaddikim, even though he's a rasha, I'm going to give him more time to live. Eventually he'll get his punishment if he doesn't do tshuva. But the fact that his father and his grandfather were righteous is in essence giving him the right to exist, even if that existence is only going to create more sins. So we see here, Rabotai, that the righteous father, in essence, even if he has a wicked kid, the father being righteous gives the kid more time to do tshuva. Gives the kid, in essence, more of a privilege in Shamayim, in this world. Once they leave this world, they're done. Judgment is judgment. There's no mercy in Shamayim. There's only mercy in this world. But the fact that the father was righteous gave even a very evil son some special privileges. On the other hand, going back to what the Midrash was talking about, where the righteous man that has a righteous son will have an extra level of joy, much more than anybody else, because the Etz Yosef says that even though every father has an inherent feeling of happiness and joy towards his son, regardless of whether the son is wise or not, the Chachamim are trying to tell us this secret that a righteous father that has a righteous son, that's Talmid Chacham, that toils in Torah, will have much more happiness than anybody else. How so? So the Midrash says, "Vayolet Chacham yismach bo." Says, and he begets a wise child, will find happiness in him. Well, Rabbi Levi explains that from where do we know that anyone that has a son who toils in Torah is filled with happiness towards him? How do we know this is the case? Because every father is technically happy with their son, unless their son is a little monster. But generally speaking, most normal fathers have this happiness from their kids to a certain extent. But the righteous father is going to have, in so many words, a status of happiness on a regular basis because of the Torah that his son learns. It says this is in the Torah, where Shlomo HaMelech is teaching us, B'ni im chacham libcha yismach libi gam ani. Where in chapter 23, verse number 15, the verse says, my son, if your heart is wise from Torah study, my heart will be glad, even mine. So Rabbi Shimon ben Menatya says, where do I learn that this is in regards to the heart of the father? I see that this is from regards to the heart of the father. I see that the Torah says that if the son learns Torah, he's going to be happy. But where do I learn that HaShem is happy? His Father in heaven. He says the same exact verse. How so? Look what it says. My son, if your heart is wise from Torah study, my heart will be glad, even mine. Gam ani. The even mine is referring to HaShem himself. Gam ani, even me. Where we have several examples that HaKadosh Baruch Hu refers to himself, Ani. The Gemara in Masechet Sukkah, page 45a, brings examples. We also have in our prayers, the Hoshana, where we say, Ani vahu Oshe Ana. Ani is referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Chachamim are explaining to us that this happiness of the righteous person with the righteous son is in essence a promise from the Torah, where Kadosh Baruch Hu, where you can't say that he gets pleasure from the intellectual achievements of his children, because after all he's the one that's giving it to them, as the Efet Torah says, where what they're trying to teach us here is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets pleasure in the fact that his children have spent time toiling in Torah. He's not necessarily looking for this child or adult to become the biggest Torah scholar in the world. He's going to decide whether he's going to be really smart and really accomplished in the world of Torah or not. What in essence is giving HaKadosh Baruch Hu nachat is that his children are learning Torah. They're toiling in Torah. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu has nachat, certainly the father in this world is also has nachat. Now going back to the original verse that Shlomo HaMelech mentioned, Gil Yagil. Gil Yagil avi tzadik v'yolet chacham yismach bo. That the father of the righteous will greatly rejoice, and he that begets a wise child will find happiness in him. It says this double joy is when the child is righteous and the father is righteous. And the proof is the verse from the Torah, Ve'ele toldot Yitzchak. And these are the offspring of Yitzchak, son of Avraham. Avraham begat Yitzchak, meaning everything that the Ramban is telling us, that it wasn't just that we had to know that Yitzchak came to the world and he came from Avraham. What the Torah is trying to tell us here, and is in essence extra words that are repeating the same thing, or at least what seems to be, is that Yitzchak came from Avraham. Avraham begat Yitzchak. Meaning that this double meaning was also referring to the double joy. And this double joy was because both of them were righteous. Both of them were righteous were because when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Avraham, I'm going to give you a child, and from him there's going to be the Jewish people. With him there's going to be the covenant. The moment that Avraham got this message from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, intimacy was no longer the same, even though he was holy from the whole time he was together with his wife. And of course his holiness continued to increase throughout all of the decades they were together. The moment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him this promise, gave him this gift, Avraham knew that there's a reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling him this. The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says that before HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded Am Yisrael to observe Shabbat, he spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he told Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, I have a very big gift, a very big treasure in my treasure chest. The name of it is Shabbat. Go and tell Am Yisrael that I'm going to give it to them. And from there the Gemara says, if one plans to give his fellow a gift, he needs to let him know before he gives it to him. As we learn from the traits of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where before he gave us this great gift of Shabbat, he let us know. Why? Because the moment that you let somebody know that you're going to give them a gift, if it's a really significant gift especially, they now have to prepare for it. You're going to give them this big gift. Maybe I have to fix the house. Maybe I have to change things. I have to get myself ready to accept it, to handle it. You don't just show up with the biggest gift in the world and say, oh, here you go. That not only leaves your friend unprepared and really dumbfounded of what to do, but also minimizes the value of the gift. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu prepared us for this great gift. Just like he prepared our forefather Avraham in the same exact way, by letting Avraham know, I'm going to give you a very big gift. This gift is going to be a son, but he's not going to be like other children that you have or will have in the future. This is the one that I will continue the covenant with. This is the one that will lead the chosen people. Now that Avraham knew that this is what's coming, he has to prepare for it. So he's thinking, wait, so this son is going to lead the Jewish people. This son is going to be one of the forefathers of the Jewish people. This son is someone that the Jewish people, the descendants, are going to depend on, rely on, stand on as a foundation. So he has to have all of the best qualities that I have. So, if I'm generous, if I am righteous, if I am humble, if I am slow to anger, quick to forgive, if I'm studious, if I'm committed, if I'm persistent, and every other positive attribute that Avraham thought in his extraordinary wisdom. And the Gemara says that the wisdom of Avraham was even greater than Shlomo HaMelech. It's just that they were never compared to each other. Why? The Avot are not considered like regular people to compare them to. Avraham was an extraordinary genius. And here the Ramban is telling us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him this message in order to ensure that Avraham takes this into account during the act of intimacy, because if he has this in mind, he starts preparing for it. He starts thinking, what do I want this son to have? I want him to have dedication to HaShem, commitment to HaShem. I want him to be a trustworthy person. I want him to be humble. I want him to be clever. I want him to be a hard worker. I want him to be a happy person. I want him to have Yirat Shamayim. And he's thinking about all of the different positive things you need to have because he himself acquired them through life. He himself toiled and worked and shaped himself to have them. No one is born perfect. Some have inclinations more than others, but everyone that became righteous had to shape themselves and grow into that righteousness. Moshe Rabbeinu says about himself in the Midrash that he was born with horrible inclinations of a murderer, of an angry person, of an evil person. And he shaped himself and fixed himself over the years, where by the time he came to Am Yisrael at 80 years old to be the Goel, to be the Mashiach, to take Am Yisrael out of Egypt, he was in essence the perfect human being, virtually. By the time he got to Mount Sinai, it was the highest possible level that any human being has ever gotten to. This is the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked him to leave his wife. He was the only one that Hashem said that to. No one else was ever asked by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to leave their wife. So Avraham Avinu is given this message that he's going to get an extraordinary gift. And now Avraham has to think about, what does this gift need to have in order for it to reach its full potential? In order for it to be the right fit as the forefather of Am Yisrael? In order for it to be the right fit to be the perfect person? And the more Avraham himself perfected himself, the more his mind opened up to what else is required for this son that he's going to have to get to. Hence the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him the message ahead of time. Because this gives Avraham time to prepare. The preparation is not just thinking about ideas. The preparation also requires you to have the ideas in the first place and also to know what they even look like, which means that you yourself have to do it. And that's why the righteous person that has a righteous son has the extra joy. Because this righteous person knows how difficult it is to be righteous, but also how rewarding it is. And therefore, when he sees that his son has followed in the same footsteps, it's a testament to his true success. It's a testament that his son will actually have a good life. He now has double joy, both from the traditional joy that every father has of bringing a son to the world, but also in knowing that this son will have a good end. Now, the Torah tells us in this week's parasha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is expecting something from us. And before he gives us the Torah, the Midrash tells us, and also the Gemara, says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in essence, offered the Torah to the other nations. Of course, he did not go to every single person and see, what do you think, what do you think? Not everyone became a prophet. This is in essence going to the Sarim, to the angels of each nation. He went to the nation of Ishmael and said, we have a Torah. And Ishmael said, what's in it? He said, you're not allowed to steal. Ishmael said, no, this conflicts with our ideology. We live by stealing. We live by stealing. You know, we steal all of the nation's money. We pretend like we're the United Nations. But in reality, it's going to buy missiles and bombs to destroy people that are innocent and haven't done anything. We also steal people's mind and pretend like we're the victims. We steal. So this Torah conflicts with our ideology. We don't want it. Kadosh Baruch Hu then went to Esav. And Esav said, what's in the Torah? And they said, the Torah says don't murder. He said, don't murder? That ruins my whole belief system. We believe we can murder whenever we want. If someone is in our way, if someone is going to expose us, if someone believes in something different than us, if someone simply has no value to us, or perhaps we have more value of them being dead than alive, we want to be able to kill them without having any problems on our conscience. Hence, we justified all the pogroms, inquisitions, holocausts, and destructions throughout all of history in the name of Esav. So this Torah doesn't fit. Other nations were offered it, and one of them was also Lot. Lot. You remember Lot? The time of Avraham Avinu, where through the merit of Avraham, Hashem sent the angels to save his nephew Lot. And from him, his two righteous daughters brought the Mashiach to the world. This was one of the ways that the Zohar says to us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu hid the seed of the Mashiach from its enemy, the Satan, by bringing the seed of the Mashiach in a unusual way. So Lot was also offered the Torah. And Lot asked, what's in the Torah? The Torah says, Kedoshim tiyu, you're not allowed to commit adultery. Lo tinaf, not to be promiscuous. Lot says, no, this doesn't fit my agenda. The fact that good came out of him doesn't mean that he himself was good. As we see, after his first daughter made him drink in order to be with him because she thought that the world ended and they have to repopulate the world. Initially, he didn't know this was the idea, and he fell for it. But in the morning, he knew what happened, and he still decided to drink again, thinking that it's going to happen again, which he did with his other daughter. Lot was wicked. Lot wanted adultery, and therefore he rejected the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us in chapter 19 of the book of Exodus, before he gives us the Torah, ועתה אם שמוע תשמעו בקולי ושמרתם את בריתי והייתם לי סגולה מכל העמים כי לי כל הארץ ואתם תהיו לי ממלכת כהנים וגוי קדוש. אלה הדברים אשר תדבר אל בני ישראל. Moshe says, in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and now, if you hearken well to me, meaning to Hashem, and observe my covenant, my BEIT. BEIT, of course, we know refers not only to observing the Torah, but also the Brit Milah. Morality. If you hearken well to me and observe my covenant, you shall be to me the most beloved treasure of all people. For mine is the entire world. You shall be to me a kingdom of ministers and a holy nation. Goy Kadosh. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel. So here HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, through Moshe Rabbeinu, I want you to be a special people. Everything is mine anyway, but I want you to be my favorite nation. I want you to be my beloved nation. I want you to be part of my treasure. I want you to be the ultimate treasure among all the people. And in order for you to do that, you have to observe my covenant. And observing my covenant requires you to be kadosh. What is kadosh? It literally means holy. But what is holy? Rashi HaKadosh, and the Ramban HaKadosh, and Or HaChaim HaKadosh, and all of the other sages of Am Yisrael, all confirm any place you see the word Kedusha, you will see morality. You will see modesty. You will see tzniut. You will see holy people that act in holiness when it comes to intimacy. That's where you will find holiness. Wherever you find lack of holiness, you will find the opposite of everything I just said. Immorality, promiscuity, and so on and so forth. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us, before he even gives us the Torah, I offered the Torah to Ishmael, to Esav, to Lot, to all the nations. It didn't fit their agenda. Why? They didn't want to be holy. They did not want to be holy. Do you want to be holy? Because if you do, you can be my chosen people. Because on this is the foundation of the entire Torah. And therefore, just a few verses later, when Moshe Rabbeinu actually goes to Am Yisrael and brings them this message and says, Am Yisrael, if you want to receive the Holy Torah and be a holy people and be the special treasure and chosen people and chosen and above all of the other treasures of this world, you have to first prepare for this treasure. That's why HaShem gave us the message before the actual treasure. How do we prepare, Moshe? Ukidashtem ayom umachar. You sanctify yourself today and tomorrow. What does it mean, sanctify yourself? Kidashtem. What does it mean? How do you sanctify yourself? You sanctify yourself by going to the mikveh and avoiding any type of intimacy with your wives, or anybody else for that matter, for the next few days. Why? Because in order to accept the Torah, you have to be in a place of holiness. And if one is intimate, even though the act itself can be holy, they still have to remove whatever filth is on themselves. So to accept the Torah, you have to be in a state of holiness. But why now? Because if you cannot keep yourself holy for a few days, then certainly you're not fit to say that you're going to be a holy people and be holy forever. See here, Rabotai Karim, we see in a couple of places where Moshe Rabbeinu is telling them this. And then Moshe clarifies further in verse number 14. Be prepared after a 3-day period. Do not draw near a woman. You cannot be with your own wife. Why? We're about to get to Torah. We have to show that we can be holy. We can't just say, yeah, we want to be holy. We want to be holy. No. You have to be in a state of holiness. Because without the Torah, there's no possibility for you to have holiness. And without the Torah, you don't even know how to achieve holiness even during intimacy. So needless to say, any type of intimacy that you have right now, if the Torah is not your guide, it's not holy intimacy. It's intercourse, conjugal relations, marital relations, call it whatever you want to call it. But it's not holy intimacy. Now HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us this. We do it. Unlike Ishmael, Esav, Lot, and anybody else that was offered. We sanctify ourselves. We prepare. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to millions of us. For the first and last time throughout all of history, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is at Mount Sinai speaking to millions of us. Not to the other nations, and not to our enemies, but everyone knows he's speaking to us. Where Torah says that a horn was so loud, and it's repeated multiple times, where the world heard the sound of the shofar for the first time in history. Until now, no one ever used the shofar. Anytime somebody blew some type of horn, it was some type of metal type of equipment similar to the music instruments that we have today. But now HaKadosh Baruch Hu took one of the horns of the Akedat Yitzchak that Avraham Avinu replaced. Instead of his son, he brought the ram. That ram had 2 horns. One of those horns HaKadosh Baruch Hu used in order to bring this extraordinary sound that the whole world heard for the first time ever. The second time will be the other horn when Mashiach comes. The whole world knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is speaking to millions of us. The whole world knew that we're receiving the Torah. The whole world was scared. Am Yisrael sanctified itself, said it's going to accept the Torah. Now HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us the Torah, and He's also giving us the 10 Commandments. He tells us that He's the only other God. He's the only God. He's the one that created the world. He's the one that you have to honor Him to the extent where you cannot use His name in vain. You can't worship any idols. You have to observe Shabbat. You have to honor your parents. And then He starts telling us some of the other commandments. Don't kill anybody. Don't steal. Technically, these are similar to, or at least they sound similar, to the 7 Noahide laws. But of course, if you look at the Gemara and Masechet Sanhedrin, you see that there's a lot more details that the Jewish people have, they have to comply with, that the Noahides do not. The don't steal is not really referring to don't steal money, but rather it's referring to don't kidnap people. And if one is caught kidnapping a person, they have a death penalty. So we see that there's more to each word than just what you would think it is. And then you see that there's a couple of commandments that also seem similar, where it says lo tin'af, which translates literally to don't commit adultery. But then it also says lo tachmod eshet re'echa, don't covet the wife of your fellow. Wait a minute. Didn't you just tell me not to commit adultery? Isn't that kind of the same as your fellow's wife? And you could say, no. Well, one is if you're married, don't cheat on your wife. And the other one is if your fellow is married and you're not, don't take his wife. Do you really think that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to spend 2 commandments just on that? When we know that each word has so many different roots that come from it. All 613 laws stem from these 10 commandments. You think he's going to spend 2 commandments that say almost the same exact thing? So what does it mean? Where else can we go other than our holy oral Torah? Gemara, Masechet Nida, page 13b. Says as follows. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Mai dechtiv yedechem damim elau. What's the meaning when the Torah writes in the book of Isaiah chapter 1 verse 15, your hands are filled with blood? Elu amenafim bayad. These are the ones who perform promiscuous acts with their hand and waste seed. So where do we know this is from the Torah? This is the Navi. Fine, the Navi is good, but we don't paskin halacha from the Navi. The Navi is considered a smachta, support. Where is it in the Torah? Tana de Rabbi Ishmael, one of the sages from Rabbi Ishmael's academy, came and added. What did he say? It says, of course it's in the Torah. It says, lo tinaf. Torah says, lo tinaf. Where does it say it? In our week parasha, in our 10 commandments. Where it says, you shall not be promiscuous. What do you think it means? Lo te'eh becha ni'uf ben beyad ben baregel. This is implying that you shall not be promiscuous with your hand or your foot. And one of the ways that we know this is the case is because when it comes to adultery or promiscuity, it's already referring to it in a couple of commandments after it, where it says, don't covet your fellow's wife. Needless to say, don't covet your fellow's husband, and so on and so forth. So here we learn, where is wasting seed, promiscuity in the Torah, even with self? It's one of the commandments. Lo tinaf. Now, of course, if promiscuity with self is forbidden, it's obvious that promiscuity with others is forbidden even more so. It's obvious that promiscuity with non-Jews, with a Jew and a non-Jew between each other, chas v'shalom, is even worse. And it's obvious that promiscuity between same gender is even worse. And so on and so forth. And there's obviously other verses in the Torah that discuss this. But the very basic, even if by self, also forbidden. Now what if somebody doesn't care? Somebody doesn't care. What's going to happen? Okay, it says don't do it, but plenty of people do it. Even the doctors sometimes say stupid things like, go do it. Same Gemara, 13a. Says, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Kol ha'ochez be'umato u'mashtin, כאילו מביא מבול לעולם. Anyone. Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Eliezer is Rabbi Eliezer ben Hokelos, the rabbi of Rabbi Akiva. Anyone who grasps his organ and urinates is condemned as if he's bringing a punishment of the flood of Noach to the world. Why? If he's touching himself unnecessarily, needless to say, it's going to lead to other things. This is why single guys should never touch their members, should sit down when they're going to the bathroom. Furthermore, because this is going to lead to wasting seed. He's too comfortable with himself. Furthermore, the Gemara says that Shmuel instructed Rav Yehuda and eventually this came out from Rabbi Abau, who heard it from Rabbi Yochanan, meaning this is from generation to generation. That it's forbidden for a person to arouse himself for no reason. So much so that Rav says that one who arouses himself intentionally is on a spiritual excommunication, because no one else of flesh and blood is going to know. But in Shemayim they know everything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything. And they put this person on excommunication. He prays, HaKadosh Baruch Hu rejects the prayer. He's in trouble, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't listen. He needs money, good luck finding it. All types of problems happen to such a person. Well, it's not just that the arousal is forbidden, but rather because this type of behavior is bringing upon yourself the evil inclination, which will lead a person to waste seed. And if he wastes seed, he's violating the Torah. He's violating the Ten Commandments. And if he violates the Ten Commandments, he should know that in the name of the Torah, Rabbi Tarfon says, it's better that his belly split open. In so many words, it's better that he die a gruesome death than waste seed even one time. Why? Once he accustoms himself to wasting seed, it'll lead to other promiscuity. And the Gemara says even a horrific example that unfortunately is all too common in our generation. As we saw from the so-called leaders report from the Epstein case, whether it be the scientists or politicians or whoever is on the who's who list of pedophiles, says the Gemara, those who play with children delay the arrival of the Mashiach. What do you mean? Why would those that are playing with children, who's sporting with children, delaying the Mashiach? Because we're not referring to those that are playing with them like it's their parent and he's playing with them to have fun. We're referring to them, those sick people that are performing homosexual acts with children and they're pedophiles. They are delaying the arrival of Mashiach. And therefore, if you have someone in your community, in your school, in your yeshiva, in your church, in your synagogue, in your police force, in your apartment building, in wherever you are, that you know is a pedophile, that you know is causing damage to children, and you don't report it, you should know, in Shemayim, everyone is cursing you. Why? You're delaying the arrival of Mashiach for not reporting this pedophile. Wherever religion you are, whatever belief you have, our holy Torah is above everyone. And the Torah says, you defend pedophiles? You're so horrible, you're delaying the ultimate climax of the world, of sanctity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the arrival of Mashiach. You're delaying that. Why? You're defending the ultimate evil. Now, where did this evil all start? Where did this sick pedophile get his ideas? It all started with him violating the 10 commandments of Lo Tin'af. Lo Tin'af is not just don't commit adultery, don't commit promiscuity with others, but rather Lo Tin'af be'atzmecha bayad u'baregel. Don't be a noef, don't be promiscuous with yourself, whether it's hand or leg. So here we see the Torah Kedusha telling us this holy Torah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us was not just an event that happened and no one ever heard. We're talking about millions of people. The Midrash says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu turned the Mount Sinai into a diamond. The whole thing was a diamond. Can you imagine the massive size of this diamond? The whole thing became a diamond with all types of flowers and beautiful things on it. And there were all types of diamonds flying around it. Am Yisrael can see through the mountain as they were all below it in the crevice that was formed below it as HaKadosh Baruch Hu raised this Mount Sinai in the air. And that created a hole in the ground. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought Am Yisrael under the mountain as the mountain that is a diamond is flying above them. And they are seeing and hearing the voice of God. The whole world knows that we are receiving the Torah at this time. The whole world heard shofar for the first time in history. All at the same time. And then Am Yisrael is raised into the air under this mountain. Everyone is flying in the air. After they heard the first commandment, they all died and resurrected. Heard the second commandment, they all died and resurrected. Everyone is in the air. The most majestical, extraordinary event in the history of the world since its creation is happening. But this could not be until Am Yisrael did not only say, we will accept the Torah, we will do what the Torah says, but rather they were willing, able, and actually fulfilled what HaKadosh Baruch Hu required of them, which is to sanctify themselves when it comes to morality. If you can sanctify yourself when it comes to morality, you can be holy. You can be my holy people. You can be my treasure in this world, above everything else. When Am Yisrael sanctified themselves, it was much easier to justify this extraordinary event taking place. It was also much easier for them to accept the commandment of Lo Tin'af. Why? They've already accustomed themselves to it. They've already realized this is required. They already lived like this. Rabotai Yekarim, the matters of morality are so fundamental in our Torah that the Mishnah in Masechet Yomah, in the first chapter, in the first Mishnah, says, Shiv'a yamim kodem Yom HaKippurim mafrishim kohen gadol mibeto lelishkat palhedrin. 7 days before Yom Kippur begins, which is on the 3rd of the Tishrei, We separate the Kohen Gadol, who will be performing the service in the Bet HaMikdash and go inside the Kodesh Kodeshim. We separate him from his BEIT. What is BEIT? BEIT means house. But that's not what the Torah is referring to. We separate him from his BEIT. What's his BEIT? His BEIT is his wife. We separate him from his wife for a week. Why? In order for him to represent Am Yisrael on Yom Kippur and go inside the Kodesh Kodashim, he has to not only know what to do, not only know the laws and know how to shecht and know how to do all of the different things that you need to do in order to be the Kohen Gadol who does all of the sacrifices on Yom Kippur, unlike the rest of the year. But he also has to be in a state of purity. But we need him to be in the Bet HaMikdash for a week. Why? Because in case he has a dream that can lead to Keri, it's enough time for him to go to the mikveh and purify himself. But if he's together with his wife, who knows what's going to be? But don't think for a moment everything is relying on this Kohen Gadol because all of Am Yisrael needs him. The same Mishnah says we also have a backup Kohen Gadol. Why? In case he has an accident and he goes to sleep after he ate too much, because they don't limit the amount of food that he eats during that week until the last day, the eve of Yom Kippur. They let him eat as much as he wants during the whole week. And if a person eats a lot or eats spicy food before he goes to sleep, it could lead him to waste seed during his sleep. Accidentally, it's keri. But needless to say, it could happen. So if there's not enough time for him to purify himself, then we have a backup Kohen. We have a backup Kohen. And some Chachamim say we should also have a backup wife. Why? But he's not together with her. No, it's not that he's going to be together with her. The Kohen Gadol has to be married in order to be a Kohen Gadol. So even though he's not with her during that week, still yes, we know he's married. And what happens if his wife dies? So we have to have a backup wife for him. The Chachamim say, oh, then there's going to be no end. What if this backup wife dies and the backup wife dies? You don't need it. The point being is, we see here that in every aspect of the Torah, in every law, in every page, in every part of our holy service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, morality is always at the foundation. When there is morality, then you have holiness. When there is immorality, unholiness, tum'ah, filth, disgusting, garbage, anti-God, atheism, idolatry, holiness, morality. So now going back to the original question of how does one know if he's going to be a happy father? How does he know if he's going to be a happy father? Well, if his son was brought to the world with pure thoughts that you yourself learned from the Shiur Torah, from the different parts of the Torah, that you applied to yourself, then certainly you are emulating what your forefather Avraham Avinu did, and therefore increasing the chance that your son will be a moral person, a wise person, and a holy person. Now, it doesn't guarantee. As we saw, there are certainly times where righteous people have wicked kids. But that's not because the righteous person made a mistake. That's because the kid simply chose otherwise. Because everyone has free choice. Now, for those kids that have chosen otherwise, but have enough merit from their fathers' righteousness and their mother's tears in righteousness, and are still alive and well and are even listening to this lecture, you should know that nearly 200 years before the Ramban wrote this, Rabbeinu Bechaya wrote the following. And he said as follows: In Sha'ar Avodat HaElohim, in chapter 6, he says, whoever rebels against God, despite his favors, will fall from the degree of the rational beings and their virtues to the low levels of an irrational creature. In this world he will share the fate of the beasts. As it's written in the Torah in the book of Tehillim, chapter 37, verse 20, God's enemies will be consumed like the glory of the pastures. They will be consumed in smoke. And in the next world he will suffer the worst possible evil. As the prophet Isaiah in chapter 33, verse 11 writes, as to your spirit, fire will consume you. And whoever rebels against the Creator, may he be exalted, will fall from both levels and be punished in both worlds. As the Chacham says, he's talking about Shlomo HaMelech, in Kohelet chapter 8, verse 13, it will not be well with the wicked, nor will he prolong his days. And whoever rebels against God in these matters will fall from all high levels in this world and will be subject to great suffering in the next. As you know from the account of Korach and his followers. On the other hand, whoever completely fulfills his duties out of love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will single him out for special favor in this world and with great reward in the next world. And he will be distinguished as a nobleman or even as a teacher of righteousness. As the Torah says about Pinchas, ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, where it says, Pinchas stood up and did justice, and the plague was arrested. This was counted to him as a merit from generation to generation forever. So here we see, Rabotai Karim, that on one end, those that follow the will of God have the ability, the possibility, and even the likelihood of not only having children, but having children that will bring them happiness. But even more so, they themselves will have an eternal reward that is beyond comprehension of any good in this world. The requirement for them to sanctify themselves. Morality is an absolute must. Immorality, whether it's with self or others, is inexcusable. And one that has committed those sins has to do tshuva as soon as possible. On the other hand, the one that disregards everything that was said, not only are they promising themselves an eternal punishment, an horrific life in this world, but more than anything else, they are guaranteeing themselves that they are on the path of destruction, not only of themselves, but also of their children. Because the likelihood of your kid being righteous after you led a wicked life is very, very small. And even if there is a special neshama that HaShem wants to bring through you, if you're so glued to wickedness, it'll be impossible for you to truly be happy when your son is going in the way of righteousness. In so many words, it'll be impossible for you to ever be happy. So here we see our Holy Torah give us pretty clear instructions. You want to be a father that's happy, both in this world and the next? Begin with sanctifying yourself when it comes to morality. Do tshuva for any mistakes that were made in the past. Do tikkunim as soon as it's possible for you. And most importantly, stay that way. And BeEzrat HaShem, we will all succeed in doing so. Thank you very much for learning with me. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless each and every single one of you with siyata dishmaya and a lot of success and all the good that you do, especially in doing tshuva and ma'asim tovim and good actions, and in sanctifying yourself in order to bring some more special neshamot of righteous people into this generation. Kol tuv, b'chal v'atzlacha.